Ammar, F1's on the big screen, on the huge, huge screen. No telemetry, no live timing, nothing. But we do have Brad Pitt and Damson Idris, produced by Lewis Hamilton. Was the race on Sunday better than a movie?
Oof. I don't know. It depends on whether they get penalties or not. No? I mean, I think that's what we're all talking about. I mean, I'm also looking for like my ticket to New York. I couldn't find it anywhere. Maybe you have yours.
I didn't have a suit good enough, man. I did enjoy some of the red carpet pictures, but I'm like maybe this is body shaming a little bit, but I felt like Esteban Ocon had forgotten to do leg day. But
oh my goodness, dude, you're taking out. Well, you know what I kept thinking is, man, we're dads, Shez. And there was one dad who wanted to be at home with his daughter, so I figured, hey, man, what's wrong with us being there? Like at least one of us. Like I had you pegged down as being there, walking right besides the champion of the hour, Mr. George Russell himself.
Yeah, right. Listen, I do love a good movie, and I am looking forward to this one. Some of the early reviews make it sound pretty promising, and I really like Top Gun Maverick. I think it's going to be great.
I think you're gonna love it. But did you read? I mean, the most telling quote was from Carlos Sainz, who was getting interviewed, and he said, "Hey guys, if you're F1 fanatics, if you're in it, like just go in with an open mind." I'm like, okay, this is hell coming their way, isn't it? Isn't it? That's what's gonna happen.
Sure, but I think every pilot in the world had to suspend their disbelief when they were watching Top Gun as well. So I mean, take it for what it is. It's got to be better than Driven, surely.
It really. Oh, come on. I don't know. We'll see. Well, we're gonna have to come back and do a special on reviewing the movie once we've watched it.
Yeah.
There was a pretty exciting race in Canada, and I have at least 15 things to talk about, but it feels like we're only going to be able to talk about your boy George Russell of what, Kingsland, right?
Well, I think there's a few things to talk about, but we can definitely start in Kings Lynn. Ammar, you are the number one fan of George Russell GR63. What was your take? Did you enjoy that?
Man,
were you just waiting for me to pile in on you afterwards? What was
we were this close. We were this close to having an interesting race. Had the safety car come out like 5 laps early. You know what? On this day, 3 days later, George Russell gets all the praise. He dominated that race end to end. I know there was a period of time when he wasn't leading the race, but he was effectively leading the race. And he deserves all the praise. I mean, he put that car on pole on medium tires, and really sort of outshone the field. And kudos to Mercedes too, by the way. Like, we don't give enough credit to the team for having the perfect strategy through and through, and they did it exactly right. And we know that in this day and age, track position is everything, and you can lose a race just as easily as you can win it from an unwinnable position. But kudos to George, man. He did everything right. He deserves all the praise. And I know what you're going to ask me, but on this day in this track, a track that, by the way, is very friendly to Mercedes. They've had a really good run over there. So all kudos to him. I kind of wish that Charles had the same thing in Monaco. I really did. Had he qualified on pole, this is exactly what would happen. It didn't happen. That's another issue for another day. But all praise to George. He did everything exactly well.
But I'd argue that Charles had his day in the sun last season, didn't he? Like, he threw off the Monaco curse in some style. And I think George did the same thing in Canada this season. Like, this was a race that he started from pole with that ridiculous lap that he did on Saturday on the mediums, like you said. Fair enough, aided a little bit by other people's mistakes. Lando Norris, I'm kind of looking at you. But he didn't throw it in the wall. He didn't make a mistake. He didn't go too aggressive, and he survived the first corner. All was well. This was a good race. This is what I keep telling you George Russell can do. Now, I'm not going to come out and I'm not going to come out and do the recency thing and that a lot of people have done, where suddenly George Russell has been the best driver of 2025. He has not. But this is a driver who is at the top of their game, and I think it can only be a good thing for Formula One. Am I wrong? Tell me why I am.
No, you're 100% correct, and here's why. And I think Formula One really needed another winner. And I mean, raise your hand if you had Mercedes winning a race before Ferrari entering the season. I'm not saying in the last few races, but look, it's only taken the 10th race of the season for us to get another winner, right? Other than one of the two dominant McLaren cars, or Max being Max, and really, it's really been only McLaren, really, in the sense of how it's felt the entire season. So on a day like this for Mercedes to run, and again, I'll add that Canada has been really friendly to Mercedes. I'm not sure you'll duplicate those results in the upcoming races, but hey, you got to take all the opportunities that are given to you. George didn't put a foot wrong. Shout out to Kimi Antonelli, by the way, for really being awesome, amazing. His first podium as well. So that really goes to show you the consistency that Mercedes have come with. They don't have the quickest car by any stretch of the imagination. But you look at where George is standing in the points, and that's a testament to his consistency as well, and the teams, by the way, for being able to maximize results. Really, outside of Monaco, which was a frustrating race for them, they've been pretty good overall. I mean, they haven't been bad. They haven't been great races, but George has always been there. He's been near the podium or just off of it, right, or on it rather, on weekends that other teams screw up. And this week he needed no help from anybody. He did it all by himself.
Yeah, George is the purveyor of anonymous podiums, isn't he? Like he always turns up, and you think, how the heck did he get there? But he's always sort of there or thereabouts outside of the McLaren Max Verstappen hegemony. Um, but Kimmy's a funny one because look, he's come into this season with like massive hype, um, but other than that Miami sprint pole, I haven't seen that sort of explosive pace out of him. Like he's not come in and threatened George Russell particularly, um, which is something
Yeah,
that,
but
that if you're talking about an absolute generational talent, which is what people had built him up to be. That's not what I'm seeing just yet. But you're right. I thought the Canada race was probably him. That's the best weekend I think he has had, but he's also been flattered by the fact that the Mercedes was more competitive in Canada than it has been, I think, probably at any other point this season. And perhaps they were good here last year as well, weren't they? Like George, if he hadn't chucked it in the wall a couple of times, um, and got spooked by Max Verstappen last year, was on course to
probably
win the
would have won.
race as well, right? So um, there's that caveat to throw into it. Um, but it'll be interesting to see if Kimmy can use this as a springboard to be a bit more consistent throughout as a springboard to be a bit more consistent throughout the rest of the season. Maybe get a bit closer to George. Maybe even overtake George from time to time. Certainly in qualifying, I just haven't seen that yet. Certainly not in the way that I
Okay.
have with someone like Isaac Hadjar, where I think overall for me has been a more impressive rookie.
So I think that's a fair take, right? But what I would argue, Shez, is there were no expectations from Mercedes coming into this season. There are a few things at play that I think have to be included in the assessment. One is the fact that Lewis Hamilton leaving, and whether you like it or not, whatever camp you're in, there was a lot of hype and sound and noise and whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm not casting aspersions on whether it's good or bad, but all of it just went out of the door. Mercedes hit it's sort of a reset phase, right? And I'm not saying reset in the sense that they're not going to be expecting to be competing for race wins or even championships. But the reality is they came into this season not really looking at anything credible in terms of being in a championship battle. They're more looking towards next year and so on and so forth. So I think when you come in with no expectations in that sense, no one expected Kimmy to be just sort of dominating there too. And we've seen Shez over and over again. Lewis Hamilton going to a new team struggling. Carlos Sainz going to a new team struggling against the veteran in that team, right? And it's the same thing here. So I would say this is perfectly what I would have expected for Kimmy. I think that if had he been beating George, I think that would have been a red flag against George, but that's not been the case. And I think he's been doing fine. And look, man, Kimi put a really good a race rather. He overtook Oscar proper and then never gave it up. And even towards the end, I mean, lost in all of the Lando versus Oscar battle is the fact that Oscar was trying to catch Antonelli. And even in the cool down room, there's a reference to that, right? Kimmy was saying, I didn't know who to give the slipstream to, right? Because he was actively playing that game too. And I think that's brilliant from a guy that is still in high school, man. Like you can't really expect a whole lot more. I know that we're kind of amazed by what Max has done, but he's been a bit of an anomaly, and I think Kimmy is well on his way to doing that as well. So I think it'll be interesting. But I thought that was an equally brilliant race for him to maximize qualifying P4, going up on the podium, keeping Oscar behind him. It's
Yeah,
good.
I mean, these are good. I just
We
hope
need to
this
see
is
more.
I
Yeah.
think this is I want this to be the springboard to see what Kimmy can really do. Like when
Yeah.
you listen to people that were close to him in the junior categories, they say that he was, a force of nature in whatever he turned up in. I just haven't seen that in F1 just yet, and I think the Isaac Hadjar comparison is apt because actually on a
Mm.
few too many occasions a racing bull in the hands of Isaac Hadjar has qualified ahead of Kimi and Antonelli. And like, however you want to cut it, these are both rookies that have turned up in a new team with a new car. And the guy in the team that haven't won a single championship, where they don't have a driver who is up there in third and fourth nearly every single race, has been out qualifying the second Mercedes. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
But
want to put
even
the burners on that a little. I just want to
I'm with
pump
you.
the
I'm
brakes on it
with
just a little bit. I also just want to put a final little word in about George because I do think that recency bias aside, like I don't think he's had the greatest season of anyone in F1 in 2025. But there's something about him that races like this really highlight. Like we talk about drivers like Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton being really good over one lap, having needing having a very particular way that they like to drive the car. Max with
Mhm.
his early turn in and early rotation, really having a sharp front end that allows the rear end to rotate, and Lewis with that late braking V style. There was a really cool video that came out from Mercedes of George doing some coaching, um, just talking through his approach to a weekend and his laps around Canada to the I can't remember her name, Dorian, the Mercedes Academy driver, where he's explaining how he approaches different balances and different car characteristics. And it's really interesting to hear that if there's a bit more oversteer, then he goes for a more classical early braking, early rotation kind of approach. Whereas if there's a bit more understeer, then he wants to induce rotation a bit more heavily by braking a bit later and Ving the corner. That speaks to his adaptability, and it gives you an insight, I think, into why he was able to be so good in this era of Formula One, where that car, that Mercedes, just it's not been a good car, but George has always kind of been there or thereabouts, even against Lewis Hamilton, who's been in that team for years and years and years. So when I've waxed lyrical about him in the past and been shot down, these are the things that I keep
Whoa.
coming back
Okay.
to.
All right.
Is that
Okay.
actually George is probably one of the quickest three in Formula One right now,
Yeah.
and it's performances like this weekend that kind of bear that out. Just a
But
segue quickly, because I don't think anyone has logged on to this video because they want to hear about George Russell winning a race. What they really came for was George Russell being a gamesmaning Max Verstappen,
so tired of this.
causing Max Verstappen to overtake him under a safety car. What the hell, George Russell?
I mean,
Don't you know who you're playing with?
I love the idea that Red Bull fans are calling George Russell being petty when that's literally all Red Bull does is being petty. Like the Red Bull lead the league, the world in being petty. And I just don't even understand. I mean, funny enough, Christian Horner was asked about this at the F1 movie premiere, and he's like, "I have no regrets, kind of doing that." I'm like, "Come on, man! Like just grow up. Like just like honestly, man, that was nothing. That was just part of a race. I'm not taking any sides in here." Guys, before you come at me, I'm a Ferrari fan. If you start telling me I'm a Max hater or a Russell hater, go back and watch our work. I've praised Max as one of the goats, right? So stop doing that. But like this is just too silly. Like Max does gamesmanship like nobody else. He's always the one paying attention to someone jumping their pit box or not lifting off in a yellow and all of these things. And so that got done to him, and he staved it off, and it was fine. It was nothing,
Only
man.
when it's Lando. Only when it's Lando.
Only when it's Sando. Okay, so whatever. Like so, you're I just love the idea of Red Bull fans being all up in arms about this when they are the ones that have benefited from this over and over again. And look, we can have this discussion on another day about bias because I know that's kind of making its way back. But on this occasion, guys, there's nothing. Like just it's a move on. It's not a penalty for this guy versus that guy. I'm just so tired of Red Bull, man. It's not even Max. I'm just so tired of Christian Horner and Red Bull like being next level petty with this stuff. It really is. Like they were gonna snatch a win out of that race on a technicality. Like that would have been absurd for the sport. Like even if you believe that that was on George, like to take away a race win for him for that, it's just crazy, man. And I know it only rivals another race that you'll bring up. I know where you're going because I saw your face light up as soon as I talked about that. So
No, I was gonna say it, but I love it. I love it. Look, in a season where
I'm
Red
talking
Bull,
about I don't love the idea of a protest.
yeah,
That's
but
all.
I love the idea of a protest because look, in a season where Red Bull haven't got a car to foreseeably win the championship with either the driver or the constructors, they need every single point. And actually, if they manage to screw over George Russell even more, then so be it. Because if George had got a 5 second penalty, he would have been out the points. That would have been a done
That would have been
that
crazy.
would have been a done deal at that point, right?
That remember that is
And
literally robbing
and
someone of a race win, Shaq.
that's fine, but that's when it becomes the steward's responsibility to make a decision and say that it's stupid. Like it was never actually going to result in a penalty for George Russell, but if it had, Red Bull would have looked like geniuses, right? Max gets a win in a race where he had no right to win the race. Well, he actually hadn't won the race anyway, but you know he gets 25 points. George gets nothing, and his nearest rival is down in, well, third. So actually, it works out quite nicely. So I like the pure audacity of it. It's so Red Bull because what Red Bull
Chess,
do is
chess.
that they
No,
push
no,
the
no,
envelope in
no,
every possible. You can say
no,
no, no, no, but
no.
ultimately, Formula One is about pushing the envelope in every area. It's not just about being technically adventurous, which right now Red Bull don't have the capability to do, or being adventurous on operations or strategy. It's about going, okay, where can we make a difference in terms of our end result, and then going ahead and trying it. If it doesn't work, fine.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
have you
chess.
lost?
I'm sorry, you can't do. You can't say that. You can't. Not in this instance. I get the idea of pushing the envelope. I completely get gamesmanship. I mean, they've one of the things that 80-21 does not cover enough of is what Checo Perez did to Lewis there. I'm
And
down
Ammar,
with stuff like that. I'm down with.
that's exactly it.
I'm
Because if you're gonna criticize Red Bull for protesting, are you not going to also criticize George Russell for breaking the first place and then saying, "Oh, Max Verstappen overtook me under a safety
Oh no,
car"?
no. I'm so look, that's on track, right? So I'm not gonna look, man. I've always been consistent in one thing. I am going to be way more lenient to drivers because they're in a cockpit where they can barely see anything, and they're doing stuff at the rate of miles, hundreds of miles an hour, which none of us sitting in an office somewhere or sitting in a room or somewhere or even on a pit wall can contemplate. So I'm down for the drivers doing whatever. I'm look at me. I'm not criticizing Max for anything either. I am just saying, Shez, that what you are talking about as an exhibit on Red Bull's behalf of pushing the envelope is not that. I mean, that is the
So what
equivalent
is
of
it
saying,
then?
"Oh, I'm gonna block George Russell in the parking lot or make him eat something weird to for him to have a stomach bug and be somehow less competent in racing. That's the equivalent of that. That to me is
No,
not
no, Ammar,
like
no,
this.
no, it
This is
absolutely is
like
not that. Because what
it's
you're
like
saying is that you are cheating
okay,
by giving
fine.
George Russell food poisoning. But
I'm
that's
exaggerating it,
that's not what
but
Christian
but
Horner has
but
done.
that's also like the
He has seen the rules and then played within the rules. And actually, if you read the actual rules, you're not allowed to be more than 10 car lengths away from the safety car. So actually, there was justifiable reason for having a protest. So it might not look good in a Formula One sense, but those are
come
the
on,
kinds of
man,
decisions that win
Chess.
championships. I don't like it. I
I
wouldn't have
agree.
liked it either.
Chess.
I
Okay,
absolutely wouldn't have liked it
if
either.
if
But
that happens with 10 laps left, I get it. But
no.
you knew the race was
Yeah,
done. The
yeah,
second
yeah.
that
That's
safety
that's
car
that's
came,
the
it was done.
that's the
So what are
perfect
you?
time to have
That's
maximum
bad
effect
gamesmanship. That's bad sportsmanship.
on who?
That's like, I mean, there are examples of that on Red Bull. Okay, like
Why?
you're gonna win on a technicality. That's
Yeah,
how you want to win.
whatever. Who they
Oh,
don't
come on.
because they don't they want to win. And if
Come on.
more teams just
Yeah,
wanted to
come on.
win rather than I want to win in the right way, then you would have
There is a
better
bridge.
results. And look, come
There
on,
is a bridge too
put it.
far to
No,
cross,
man.
man.
No. So, look,
So you're telling me that you would be happy as a Red Bull driver winning that
yeah.
race under a
Do you
technicality
think
where
Max
you win?
cares? If Max was
I
given
think he
that,
does care.
I don't think he does.
I think he does care. I think that look,
No, not
I'm
even
not worried about
slightly.
how he responds
Not
cheekily to
even slightly.
no one
I
wants
think
to
he
be
no,
Dan
man.
is being gifted a
No,
race
man.
on something that it's
Max
one thing for George to have a mechanical failure or
nah.
something like that. I
Nah, nah,
get
nah, nah,
that.
nah, nah,
Like
nah, nah.
that's part of course.
No.
I mean, you're yeah, I don't know. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to
For
agree to
me,
disagree.
Max, I think internally feels like he deserves to win every race. That's the level of his own ability that
I
he feels
guarantee
like
you he doesn't feel like he deserved to win the
you
race.
can guarantee that. You can
I
guarantee
can
that Max
guarantee.
Verstappen would
I
not have.
would get
He would have
I
turned around.
would get
I could
I would
guarantee it the other
guarantee
way as
that
well.
yeah, okay. I know we're disagreeing. I get it, but I'm just saying that is not a race where you can sit up there and
No.
be like, "Oh wow, I actually," because you look nowhere close to winning it, and you're gonna win on a technicality,
Yeah, it
like
doesn't matter. A
literally.
technicality is still a win. And Ammar, look, this is meant to be about winning every single race, getting the maximum
Yeah,
number of
okay.
points.
Then let's go deflate
However,
the other car's tires.
no, no,
Let's go do that.
Ammar,
Why do we?
That's cheating. What Christian Horner did with the protest here was not cheating. It was
It's not about that.
trying something. And
Yeah,
my
trust.
comparison here is always Toto, because throughout that 2021 season, Toto Wolff was always like, we want to win in the right way. When there was a protest against his team's rear wing, when Red Bull were like, oh, we don't think that rear wing is stiff enough, and
Why did you say it like
the
that?
FIA decided to impose a fake load test that wasn't even meant to be legal. They Mercedes turned around and said, yeah, try it out on our car. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you
Because you
openly
don't
allow people to test your
because you're
car?
confident enough in your own
But that's
abilities that you don't need to be
nonsense.
gifted anything.
No, but
Then
that's
that's the equivalent of saying,
nonsense.
I know, by the way, I don't even
And in fact,
understand why
it tells me that your rear wing is stiffer than it actually needs to be anyway. That's even worse. So and I use that as an example because you would
they won the
never see
constructors
Christian. You would never, yeah, didn't win the drivers though, did they?
that has
Because
it's more to it than
at
just
the
that.
key moment,
The
they knew
magic button.
what to say. They knew what to say to the race director, and Toto Wolff et al. Did not. All they could sit there and do was throw their headphones around and say, "This is so
And I
unfair,
was
Michael."
critical of Red Bull for working the refs too. Like I get it. Like look, man, I get there's levels to it.
If Mercedes had the nous to work the race director in the way that Red Bull had, that result may not have been the same. And but I admire them. I admire them for doing that, and that's why I admire the fact that Christian Horner is a chancer. He gave it a punt,
But
and if it
but
didn't, it did. If it didn't work, it didn't work. Like it was never going to.
then
Like he
there
was
should be a
never going to
penalty
get a
for it.
penalty.
There should be a penalty for losing the challenge.
Sure, but that rule isn't there right now. If there was a rule that said you get a penalty for a frivolous protest, then fine. It would have been dumb to make that protest. But that rule is not there right now. So everything that you
By
are
the way, just
saying
full,
is down
full
to the
disclosure,
stewards to rule on, not Christian Horner to not make a protest on.
full disclosure, I will also say this: had George been within 10 lengths and Max had overtaken him, I would have been against Max getting a penalty in that scenario too, because it just would make no sense. There's no actual racing ahead. So like you can say what you want, like, but that was not like that's you know. Yeah, there's a fine margin between trying to overtake and not hitting the guy, and then just effectively being DNF, because these cars are so damn heavy and yet so damn sensitive. Like it's just crazy to me. But we can move on. It's fine.
So much fence sitting. All right, okay, that's that. Let's move on to the the main event.
Oh my
Right at
goodness.
the end of our video on
You're gonna love me
Montreal,
after this.
Lando versus Oscar.
You tell me how you
Mm.
felt about Lando, because I have a take, but I think it's the most unpopular take. But I really want to know what you make of it, because I've seen a lot of judgments.
You know what I'm going to say? It's par for the course for Lando. Like, he was quick
It
over the
is.
course of the weekend. He was quick in the practice sessions. He was quick in the two qualifying segments before Q3. Then he turns up in Q3 and makes two major errors in both of his qualifying laps and ends up qualifying seventh. What the hell? And then McLaren put him on a strategy that might have allowed him to come back. And in the race, he's the quicker McLaren driver again. And yet again, when it comes to wheel racing, I thought when he took Oscar into the hairpin on lap 66, boom, we're in. This is great. This is what I came here to see. Fair racing, and Lando showing what he can do. But Oscar was also showing what he could do. That's what you have to expect, that's what's going to happen. These are two, young drivers who want to show everyone what they can do and win a world championship. But again, Lando has a misjudgment. He goes for a gap that he knows isn't there. And we know he knows it isn't there because immediately afterwards, not even waiting for the pen afterwards, he apologizes and says that was a mistake. And I respect that. I respect him for doing that. But why does he do it? Why did he do it again? And I think I'm being a little bit too unfair on Oscar by saying that. Like, I'm saying that Oscar is winning these races because Lando is being bad, and I don't think that is the case. I think Oscar has taken the step he needed to from last year. He's really got that one lap pace. If you look at their qualifying difference, he is the quicker McLaren driver by about a tenth and a half. And in the races, he's built on the fact that he has better racecraft, and he's now managing his tires better over a stint as well. So I mean, you can make your unpopular argument, but the evidence is all there that Oscar Piastri is the more complete driver who is performing
Whoa,
in a
whoa, whoa,
way
whoa.
that you would expect a champion to perform in that car.
Okay. I mean, that's just I am.
By the
You
way,
guys, you're just wearing me
I
out.
do love the
I just.
condescension in your voice already, but I'll let that slide.
I mean, it's not towards you, but yet. But man, I'm just so tired of this. So look, here, let me get up front. There is no defending Lando's move, right? There is no defending, because, as you rightly pointed out, he himself confessed to being wrong and paid a heavy, heavy price for it. And I think that by itself is enough. Like, I mean, the one thing I will object to is, why didn't he get a penalty point? Like, he should have 100% gotten a penalty point for it. Like, I get that they put a 5-second penalty on there, which I don't understand why they would do that, because at that point it just made no sense. You could just give him a penalty point and move on if you really wanted to do that. Another topic for another day. I agree and share your opinion about Lando making the same mistakes over and over again. I mean, I think that there are different flavors of the same mistake and with different drivers, but they're still mistakes. So I too am disappointed, and I think he is too, because this was a bad weekend for him, which could have actually potentially been a great weekend for him, because at worst, he would have finished behind Oscar. At best, he would have finished ahead of Oscar, which could have been a really good thing for him. And Oscar didn't win. So I am 50% of the way there with you. I am not going to go there, Shez, where you went, which is that, and a lot of people have like, this is the reason why why Lando will never win a championship. You know what? Calm down. Like, again, you might think that he is a weak champion, and we've debated this last year too. that might be the case. You might come back and say, yeah, this championship deserves asterisks because he wasn't amazing throughout the year, or he didn't pull it off like Max did last year, or maybe even in 21. I get it. But like, can we please simmer down? Let me give you some facts now, because I know you're going to get all on top of me for sharing the truth here. But this is race 10 of 24. There are 14 more races. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, double that. 14 more races. Okay. Second thing, we're all ready to crown Oscar when he wins a race, but good God, we're just going to skip over the fact that he gave up P3 to Kimi Antonelli or got passed over. You describe what that move was. Are we going to praise Kimi for that? Or are we going to blame Oscar for bottling it? Which, by the way, also happened in Imola, and we all got infatuated with helping with Max's view overtake and praising that, but no one. If that had been Lando, you guys would have all been saying, "Oh, he bottled it." We wouldn't have been praising Max. We would have said, "Oh, look, Lando bottled it." Oscar did the same thing in this very race. He got beaten by Kimi Antonelli in what, turn 2 or turn 1, somewhere abouts in the first third of the lap. And by the way, it never caught him. Okay, and then in the midst of this Lando versus Oscar thing, one of the reasons why Lando was able to catch up, I know there were other reasons, tire offset, etc. One of the reasons why Lando was able to catch up to Oscar is because Oscar couldn't make an impression on Kimi Antonelli. And granted, this is Mercedes track, but I get what you're saying there, but you're acting like, so now you're gonna have to tell me one thing. Either you're gonna crown Kimi Antonelli as being awesome, or you have to then admit that there was a flaw in Oscar's race too. So let's not act like he put a brilliant race together either. He didn't put it on pole, by the way. My point to you guys, all of you that are like, oh, McLaren should pick a driver and he's the guy. Guys, McLaren's going to be dominant everywhere else. Ain't nobody going to beat them. Max is going to pull out the odd race because Max is Max. But for the next 14 races, I guarantee you they're going to win 10 out of the 14. There's 3 or 4 other races that something will happen. Why do they need to pick a driver? They do not. They absolutely 100% do not need to pick a driver.
I don't think they need to.
And don't tell me that Oscar is.
Yeah,
and so if
because I think Oscar is
of,
going to de facto be that driver
okay,
anyway.
that's
He's
fine.
Going to do it on his own.
But then he's also winning against a mediocre.
I agree.
So it's not like, let's not put him on the Mount Rushmore just yet. So like,
but nobody's saying that. At no point in this did I say that you're going to put Oscar Piastri on the Mount Rushmore of Formula One. All I've said is that he is a better, more complete driver than Lando Norris.
I'm not sure about that.
But you are using Kimi Antonelli as a single as a single evidential factor in a race where the Mercedes was a quicker car, and you could argue that actually Kimi underperformed in qualifying, so he actually just took the place that he should have had anyway. And the reason that Oscar wasn't able to catch Kimi was because Kimi had a quicker race car than the McLaren. This was evident throughout the race. So I'm not sure that completely follows. And if you're going to use a bigger sample set than just one race, which if you're going to do anything scientific, is how you're supposed to do it. Do you mean the race that Oscar? What did Oscar do?
No, he lost it on the first turn to Max. Remember?
Yes,
we were all waxing lyrical about.
Yes, that's true. But didn't Oscar finish second?
Yeah, he did, but he started P1. No, he bottled the
yeah, sure. But Oscar still finished second. It's not like Kimi Antonelli beat him there, did he?
But the same thing can be said about Lando. I agree. Look, Lando's sample size is bigger in terms of his mistakes, but the end result is that he's still in there. Isn't he P2 in the championship?
Yes, but that's by dint of the fact that he's in a car that allows him to do it. This is okay. I mean, we go past this again and again and again. I think on multiple conversations that we have together.
Still P2,
but you do have to take the car into consideration when you judge a driver's performance. And
fair enough.
And no, I am not saying that Oscar Piastri is somehow Jim Clark, but of the two drivers, Oscar, I think, is showing that on balance, he is the more complete driver. And by that, I'm not even saying faster, because I think that Lando, fundamentally, even this weekend, was the quicker McLaren driver. But if you can't show it because you're making silly mistakes with, might I add, an upgraded 100%. Front suspension, right, on his car 100%. Only, then what is the point of that speed? If you're going to make silly errors in races, going for a gap that clearly is not there.
Look,
And Ammar, I would be happy to say to chalk this off as a one-off, as you are trying to do here. But because there's a big enough sample set of Lando, not just this season but last season as well, then you kind of have to go. This isn't just a one-off here and there kind of thing. This is a trend. This is just what Lando is, and where Oscar has progressed from one season to the next in terms of his qualifying and his tire management. Lando has not changed from last season to this season, and in this season it counts for more. So I listened to the races post Canada review, and one of the things they said is, yeah, maybe Lando will get it, but if he gets it in a season where he's lost the opportunity of having this car, what's the point? Like, if he's suddenly
I get it. Look, I understand. It's very frustrating to watch Lando, because I think you can genuinely see, as you said, he's the quicker guy, but Oscar's putting the more complete race. And I don't know what goes into it. Like, I would love to be in the mindset and the sort of the aftermath of this particular race, because clearly there's something he needs to work on there. And these are massive points that are lost by him on his own account, right? And I get that when you're competing against a Max Verstappen, your Max is going to race people a certain way. That's probably something every driver has to deal with. I think this particular incident is inexcusable, and I give him a lot of credit for putting his hand up and saying, "My bad, my fault," right? And so I think at the end of the season, after the next 14 races are over, if Lando doesn't win it, he has no one to blame but himself, and I'm sure he will do that. But the reality is, and my point is, I'm not crowning one driver over the other. All I'm saying is we shouldn't crown one driver over the other, because there are 14 more races and there's still plenty of time for this to be fixed, or for these situations to not happen, which is also a possibility, because Lando can turn up, be dominant, lead a race wire to wire, and it doesn't even matter, right? And so that can happen. And I'm also not going to say that if Lando Norris wins it, he is in the Mount Rushmore either. All I'm saying is pump the brakes on Oscar. That's all I said. That's all I said. Because my response is just, you can't be McLaren and pick a driver now when you've been doing papaya rules all the time. So like, that assertion is just, sorry to say it, stupid. Like, it just is. Like, that's it. And Oscar hasn't shown any flashes of brilliance, right? He's also kind of, yeah, come on. What come on, tell me which one. I'll listen.
Baku 2024, that pass on.
Okay, wait. We're talking
Leclerc.
about this season. We're talking. Oh yeah. Oh, it's one. Okay, go ahead. Mini DRS, but fair enough.
He didn't need a mini. Wait, he wasn't using the mini DRS to get past Charles in the first place, though.
But he did need it to keep it. No, and you wouldn't have remembered it in the same way. So, but fair enough. Okay, but this is just my point.
Saudi corner one.
Okay, that's one that is legitimately there. That's it.
Spain, the entire race.
I hear you. Okay, but it's really, come on, man. Then Lando was Singapore the entire race. You can't.
No. But
my point
Lando
is, if you're
debating to stick it in the wall a couple of times in Singapore.
Okay.
Was there ever any doubt about Oscar winning in Spain this year?
You can't do that. Can't do.
Of course I can.
Close enough.
And in fact, Oscar's won 5 races to Lando.
Netherlands last year. Netherlands 24.
How many races has Oscar won this year? 5. How many has Lando won? 2. And if you're going to talk about, like, we've talked very specifically about Lando Norris.
Oscar is less deserving.
We've talked very specifically about Lando being the quicker driver of the two, and yet he is trailing Oscar in the head-to-head and pace department in qualifying.
100%, 100%. But I'm not even debating that. Just all I'm saying is, you can't say one driver is overall better than the other. It's still TBD. Like, wait for these next 14 races.
You honestly, I'm not going to wait till the end of their careers for it to not be TBD, Ammar. There is enough
for the end of the season.
There's enough evidence here already to tell me that Oscar, in terms of racecraft, now qualifying, is the better, more complete driver. And unless you see a change in Lando, then I'm not going to change that opinion. And if you see a change in Lando, then it's a different driver.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to ask you. A quick question. I'm just going to, because you are the stats person. You know Formula One in and out like an oracle. How many points does Piastri have over Lando?
22
Oh yeah,
points.
198, 176. So 22. Okay. All right. So let's not act like. My point is, let's not act like Lando is
In fact,
like 50 points ahead.
Oscar made the point himself that Lando needs to win 3 races in a row and him to finish second on each occasion
It can happen.
for Lando and Oscar to be equal on points again.
Yeah.
That's what needs
And
to
Oscar
happen.
can have a DNF
But
too
that
at some
pattern,
point. Yeah.
that I would say actually that Lando's DNF of his own making in this race balances out Oscar's own fall to the back of the pack in Australia.
And that's my point. That's my point. They're even. And you can say that yes, one driver's deserving.
Even in terms of the number of lost points.
There. Yeah, it's not a great separation. So that's all I'm saying. And look, at the end of the year, I'll give you this. If I'm wrong, I'll eat some humble pie. There you go. You have it.
I feel like you should have eaten humble pie about 3 races ago.
No. I will do it. I will do it. But at the end of the season, good God, we never talked about Ferrari in this one. Another day, another time.
Oh, we'll definitely talk about Ferrari because
my misery continues.
Indeed. Okay, let's leave it there. We'll definitely talk about Ferrari in the next few days. As usual, please like, please subscribe. Tell us what you think. Oscar, Lando, is it really even a debate? Come on.
Who cares? No one's going to
bother. Please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to as many as we possibly can. We will see you guys, can't get my words out, in the next one.
Later.